Welcome to Psychology Today. I'm your host, Ann Morrow. Thank you for watching. This is a show about bicycling generally and specifically about bicycle safety. I hope that Psychology Today helps to inspire you to ride a bike and to be more mindful about safety. We try to celebrate people in our community that maybe pursue a career that incorporates bicycling or maybe an entrepreneurial endeavor, and those that just strive to encourage other people to ride bikes and support bicycling and bicycle safety. Our producer, Northwest Bicycle Safety Council, is an organization that promotes safety and harmony between cyclists and works to strengthen our community and your families through cycling-related programs and events. 2018 found our volunteers placing free helmets on hundreds of local heads at various cycling-related events. Learn more about that on our website. And I want to give a quick thank you to our capable crew behind the scenes that makes our show possible. Our guest is Joel Fletcher from OBRA, that's Oregon Bicycling Racing Association. And I know I personally know very little about OBRA and bicycle racing, so I'm really anxious to have a conversation with Joel and learn more about that. So let's get started. Welcome to Psychology Today, Joel.
Welcome. Thanks for having me.
So we're going to start just with the basics. I like to let you set the credibility level so we know where you're coming from.
If I've actually ever ridden a bike before.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good start. So let's start with a little history about you and how you came to live in the Portland area.
Well, I've lived in Portland for around 8 years. I grew up in Seattle and moved to Colorado for school, moved back to Seattle, and then finished my school at PSU in their School of Business with a marketing degree.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, nice. And then you stayed after you graduated?
I stayed, never left. I have family here, and we would come visit, and it's always a city that I thought about living in one day, and it's just a really natural fit with its ease of getting around, the bike infrastructure and cycling infrastructure that's around here, and the kind of small city feel while still having the amenities of a large city. I kind of like that feeling.
Nice. Yeah, a lot of us do.
Yeah. So too many of us maybe now.
Yeah, it's getting to be too many of us. Share a little bit about your bicycle history.
All right, I've always ridden a bicycle, grew up riding a bike from, I think it's kind of a story in my family that my dad took my training wheels off when I think I was 3 to my mom's demise, and I took off ever since. Grew up mountain biking mostly. My first job was in a bike shop when I was 15. My dad was a cyclist. My uncle was a cyclist who lives here, raced a bit, and I saw them racing bikes on the road and thought it was actually really nerdy. I hated the spandex. I did not like that at all. I liked mountain biking, liked wearing baggy shorts, and went to school in Colorado at Fort Lewis. I was a skier. I was a big backcountry skier for a long time and wanted to go to school where there was snow, went to Durango and actually fractured a vertebrae skiing. Realized I was actually at one of the best cycling schools in the country. Fort Lewis is one of the biggest and best collegiate cycling programs in the country. So started racing bikes there, racing mountain bikes and cyclocross. Started racing road bikes when I moved back to Seattle, and then that's kind of what I've transitioned into racing now, is mainly road bikes.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. And so you just said that you're racing road bikes, so is that the primary role that the bike plays in your life right now? Do you commute by bike?
Yeah, I do. I do almost everything on bike. I am lucky enough to live in a place where I can ride 5 minutes to a grocery store. I can ride 10 minutes to downtown. Yeah, the bike plays a role in my life essentially every day. I rode the rollers today because it was raining a lot. Whether that's training or commuting or whatever that may be, just riding around for fun, going mountain biking, whatever that may be. I pretty much ride a bicycle every day.
It sounds like it's an essential part of your life.
Yeah.
So what's your best cycling memory from this past year, 2018?
Oh, this was I thought a lot about this and what I most appreciated. I think my partner and I went down to the Bay Area early 2018. I think it was in January to train. I'm lucky enough to work from home and kind of have a mobile schedule, and my partner does as well, and we went down to the Bay Area where my family lives to train in the warm weather. When it's raining and 40 degrees here, it's 60 and sunny down there. So we were down there for about 3 weeks, explored all the riding in the Bay Area. It was wonderful, and I'd wake up and work for a few hours, go ride, and then come back and work again. And that was pretty great to just hang out, ride bikes. I also think more of a racing memory, the Montanore road race, which is a road race out at Montanore Vineyards. That's probably only like 15 minutes from the studio here. It was a big team race of ours, and I personally had one of the best races of the season, and for myself, our team did as well, and we won, and I played a pretty integral role in setting up our teammate Dan to take that win. And it was just a really good all-around race. It's a cool venue put on by great promoters, and then you get to drink some wine afterwards. And it was, that was probably my best racing memory.
That does sound like a good one.
Yeah,
I could see why you'd be hanging on to that one. So you are the marketing and junior racing director of OBRA. Now we're going to talk work a little bit. So, which is Oregon Bicycle Racing Association. We all just call it OBRA. And you don't really know what the acronym stands for unless you kind of think about it.
Some people say OBRA.
Yeah, well, that's
true. They say
true.
it wrong sometimes.
Right. And what's the bike brand?
Right.
What's the Orbea?
Orbea.
Yeah, Orbea. Yeah.
It's too close.
It's close. So tell us how you got involved with OBRA, and what do you do for them now?
I was actually sent this job posting. It was on OBRA Chat, which is our in-house OBRA chat board, which hosts all types of conversations. And there's a posting for a marketing position in OBRA, and I had just finished school and didn't quite know what I was going to do. And I raced at this time, and I knew what OBRA was, so I put together my portfolio and interviewed and got the job. And it's transitioned a lot. We're a small organization, and my role is always growing as everyone's is within the organization. And what I do a lot day to day now is during the winter, it's more big picture stuff, planning for 2019, getting our calendar in order, working with promoters to help start spreading the word about their races, working with promoters to figure out new races. We're going to be putting on the first ever point-to-point gravel stage race out in Eastern Oregon. Look for that on the OBRA calendar. I also have, my role is kind of transitioned into a lot of grant writing and working with a lot of resources for nonprofits, from Google Nonprofit and things like that, to just get some more money into our organization, so that we can better support our promoters and put on better races for everyone, do more clinics and things like that. I day to day run our social media, and that's fun, can also be challenging. During January, there's one race down in Southern Oregon. There's a cyclocross race after the first of the year. But doing things like that, planning our end of year party with all of our awards. I do a lot of content creation during the summer months and the spring months and the fall during cyclocross season. Things like with Bike Town, the Nike Bike Town bikes, we had a few OBRA teams last summer, raced those up to Council Crest.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, so those are 50-pound bikes. So just fun stuff like that just gets people excited about bike race. I mean, my main job is to get more people racing bikes.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's getting people who already race bikes try something different, trying a different area of the sport. Sometimes it's talking to new people about bike racing who have never raced bikes before at all, and try and get them just initially interested in this sport.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds fun.
It's pretty cool. They always talk about turning your passion into a job.
Yes.
And they always say it'll never feel like work, and there's definitely times where it feels like work, but this doesn't feel like work right now. This feels pretty fun.
Yeah, this is
pretty natural.
This is pretty
But it's very fun, and it's very fulfilling, especially working with kids and things like that, and I love that part of it. I mean, all of us in the organization do it because we love bikes, and we love to see more people racing bikes, and that's why we do it.
That must be a nice environment.
Yeah, it's great, and
in a lot of ways.
Yeah, everyone's very supportive, and we have a great board of directors that gives us a lot of great direction to head in with what we want to do, and a lot of great leadership, and they're all bike racers in one way or another themselves as well.
That helps.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, I mean, it's an organization that's like bike racing from the core and very grassroots, and a lot of great ideas that
it sounds like the whole bike town thing is.
Yeah, that was pretty interesting. I actually won that race.
Oh, you did?
Up to the on that 50-pound bike. Just a little humble brag. That was my only race I won in 2017, actually.
So
bike town race.
You mentioned the board. So OBRA's executive director changed within about a year ago, I think. They kind of changed. So can you share some of the vision of your new executive director? Is it Chuck Kenlin?
Chuck Kenlin, yeah. He's actually been one of the longtime promoters of the Cascade Cycling Classic in Bend. So he has been around.
Right.
That is
that's forever.
At its biggest point was like guys. I think Lance raced that.
I think
guys
he did
like
when he was
Chris
coming
Horner.
back.
Yeah, there's been. I mean, some of the biggest racers in the country have done that race. It went away last year. It didn't come together. There was new sponsorship, a new promoter coming on board. It is on the calendar for this year and should happen. The lower category races are going to be OBRA races. The pro men and pro women's race will be USAC races. So it's a good combination of getting some of those bigger teams there with it being a pro race, but then also having those having the lower level teams lower level races be an OBRA race, which is way more accessible for OBRA racers. You don't have to buy another license, things like that. But anyway, so Chuck came to us with a lot of knowledge, worked for other nonprofits, and is very highly skilled in big picture stuff for sure, looking at finding new sponsors for OBRA to help, again, better support our promoters and better support bike racing. His communication is great, and I talk to him probably every day. And it's funny, we always had an inside joke that when Chuck got hired, he used to call us all the time on the phone, and we always were like, within the organization, we're like, are we in trouble because he's calling us? And he's just like, no, I just like to talk on the phone, and I like that too. I just wasn't used to it. But he's big in making the experience as easy for our users as possible, and if that's a better website experience, if that's like I said, more sponsorship to make to subsidize some racing, things like that, supporting the promoters and really understanding what they want and meeting with them at different times throughout the years. So he's been very great, and with what my role is, allowed me to do more grant writing and things along that line. I mean, from every nonprofit I've known, they've always had a specific grant writing role, and we've never had that, and it's something that I want to pursue and see what opportunities there are for us in that area.
Yeah. So when your previous executive director was leaving, he noted that there was a downward trend in membership. And I know as a road bike rider, I see that on the club level too, like major rides like STP and our Portland Wheelman's Pioneer Century, the ridership has just really gone down of late. So what's your take on that trend?
Yeah, it's interesting. I didn't know that about the STP and other maybe non-competitive cycling events are also down. I think like anything, road cycling specifically goes through trends. Before the Lance boom, we'll call it, there was a lull in road bike racing. And then in the 80s he came around and there was a huge bump for a number of years, and then he went away. There was some bad times, let's say, for road racing at that level, and then it's kind of gone into another lull. I think there's a few reasons for that. I think distracted driving plays a huge role in just the safety. To race a road bike at a high level, you have to ride your bike a lot, and I understand that, and a lot of people that watch this will understand that it takes a lot of time to do that. More and more you hear about accidents with pedestrians or with cyclists, and I think it's just become something that people are just scared, and I think that there needs to be maybe an education shift in the way people are driving or whatever that is. I think that plays a role. I'm pretty lucky to be able to ride. I work from home, and we all work from home in the organization, so I can go out for an hour during the middle of the day and go ride my bike rather than having to ride at peak commute hours in the morning or in the evening. I also think that while there is a downward trend maybe in road cycling right now, there's also other opportunities for races, like gravel races are extremely popular.
And I see that happening, like Cycle Oregon offered a gravel type ride.
Yeah.
So
and they're all over, and there's a lot of great events. You're on gravel racing, and gravel riding is so big right now because you're on roads that are very low traffic, and there's maybe you see like a couple farm trucks or something, and it's something to where bike racing, I always say, is really transparent, and the user will tell you what they want. If people aren't coming to your race, you need to look at doing something different. And if people don't want to road race right now in 2018, maybe they will in 2 years, and maybe that lull will turn into an upward trend, and I think it will, because I think it's just cyclical. But find what people do want to ride, and if that's gravel, cyclocross is very popular. Track, there are not very many velodromes in the country, let alone the world, and we have one in our backyard, and it's extremely safe. There's obviously no cars or any traffic on the track. I hope not. And things like that, and finding what the racers want. I love road racing and will always love road racing. I've raced for a high level for a long time and all over the country, and I love it, but I think we need to look at how to make it sustainable as a whole for moving forward into 2019 and years moving forward from that. And I don't see it going away, but it might just be on a downward trend right now that will come back, I think. Maybe we'll get another Lance.
Well, and that's what I was just going to say, like we talked about before the show. So let me give you a quote from your website, that OBRA is the foundation for the racing community in Oregon, Southwest Washington, and parts of Northern California. We serve as the glue between racers, promoters, officials, and sponsors. OBRA is all of us, the sum of all of our parts. We are successful because we rely on each other and understand the importance of all of our roles. OBRA makes it easier to put on events and races. So based on that description of OBRA, can you give us your personal take on OBRA's function and OBRA's mission?
Yeah, this is actually something that I probably need to read more on a, maybe not day to day, but just need to read more, because it's very important in this quote. Is it essentially is saying that we're a very grassroots organization, and we work with our promoters, we work with our racers one-on-one. We're very open to communication. I am extremely accessible. People can call me, email me. Chuck is very accessible. People can call me, email me with questions, concerns, and like I said, same thing with Chuck. And I think that's the biggest thing about our organization is we are a bike racing organization. We want people to race bikes, but the OBRA is everyone that races and everyone that supports races, from parents who take their kids to a race. And the organization wouldn't work without our promoters, and wouldn't work without our officials, and wouldn't work without our racers. And the big goal and the big idea behind OBRA is that we're very grassroots and care about the first-time racer who's never touched a bike before, all the way up to the person that's raced for 15 years. And we'll have an area for each one of those people and everyone in between to come and have fun, enjoy racing their bike, or come have fun and learn how to race their bike for the first time. And it's like I said, everyone has a role, and that's within the staff of OBRA. That's always changing, but it's a pretty well-oiled machine, and we have people who will pick up the slack if someone's gone or whatever. Something needs to be done that doesn't fit someone's specific role. We have people who will help out. We have great volunteers, and we have all these other organizations in like Alpenrose, who is a big supporter of OBRA and things like that. So that's kind of what that means, I guess. To me.
Yeah. That's quite the noble cause.
Yeah.
So let's talk about some of your events and competitions. I mean, I'm calling them events because as a road bike rider, that's what I call like STP or Pioneer or Monster Cookie is an event. But there are competitions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Someone wins.
Someone wins. So, and again, I got a lot of this from your website, which is a very good website and a good resource for people, because I knew nothing. The Time Trial Cup, what kind of a competition is that?
So the Time Trial Cup is anywhere from 4 to 6 time trial specific races. So time trials, I mean, we can talk about them, and that's a very easy way to get into the sport. I work with a lot of senior sports organizations that want to race their bike but don't want to do it in the least dangerous way, I guess, as possible. And time trials are you versus the clock, and that's it. And you still get to challenge yourself and push yourself, but you're not on course with other racers. So the Time Trial Cup is like I said, is an event throughout the year, anywhere from 4 to 6 depending on the year. We do awards at the end of the year. At our awards party, we have cool glass awards for all these different categories. There's junior categories, there's like the senior men, senior women, which is like elite. Senior, I guess, is elite, and then there's masters, which is the like masters 35 plus, masters 40 plus, and there's all these different categories for people to race their bike from an overall sense, also from breaking it down into all these different categories. So that's the Time Trial Cup, a great way to introduce yourself to bike racing in a very low danger atmosphere on courses that have very little technical, they don't have a lot of turns. It's not very technical, very safe, and put on by great promoters.
That does sound like a good place to start. Now I saw the Oregon, it says XC series.
Yeah,
Do you say it XC?
Totally.
Okay.
You sound like a natural.
What is that?
XC is cross-country mountain bike racing.
Oh, okay.
So mountain bike racing has disciplines within itself, from downhill to enduro to short track XC to XC, which is cross country. So that's longer anywhere from, depending on what category you are, from like 25-ish to maybe 40 miles. Most of the
Wow.
races I do will be about 40 miles. They're mostly on single track. And the Oregon XC Series is put on by Mike Ripley, who is our mountain bike director, runs Mudslinger Events, who's the promoters behind, or he's the promoter behind these in Mudslinger Events. And the XC Series is, again, 4 to 6 races, and it is an overall series throughout the year. And these races are all over the state, from anywhere from like Echo, Oregon, Eastern Oregon, to Bend, to Southern Oregon, and it's just an overall competition for essentially, maybe some would say, the best cross-country mountain bike racer in the state or in the area. So a good way to target maybe 6 races throughout the year, and then to have an overall competition and see where you stack up. Yeah.
Sounds exciting.
Yeah.
And finally, before we go to our video, Oregon Triple Crown.
Yeah,
Royalty.
the Triple Crown.
Oh.
Yeah, that's again a Mike Ripley event, and those are more of the Grand Fondo style races, and he'll have some Grand Fondos in those. So Triple Crown, there's 3 races. A few of his races will be gravel races, like the Oregon Coast Gravel Epic. I hope I'm saying that right. And it is a awesome race on the Oregon coast that is mainly fire roads. And then he'll do a couple Grand Fondos as well. And again, it's an overall series for these 3 races, and those are long. There's some of those days that are like 130 miles for the elite. All of them will have different size courses for, usually be 3, maybe 2, sometimes 3 different lengths. But for those elite categories, some of those races will be 130 miles.
Oh my gosh.
Some of them will be down at like 40 miles for someone who's new into the sport but still wants to experience this Grand Fondo style race, which is a lot like maybe the events that you're used to, where everyone starts together, men and women, juniors, all different categories, and then at some point they'll break off and do different courses.
Cool.
But then you're all racing together, and they're very easy races to put on because you don't have to have different start times for each category.
Yeah.
There's going to be well-stocked feed zones at all these with great foods. You don't have to like haul a backpack with all your food. You'll be able to stop and fill your bottles up and really challenge yourself to see if you can ride 130 miles. Some people will be racing the whole time. Some people just want to finish, and it's something that it's in normal road races. If you get dropped, it's hard to maybe find the motivation all the time to continue racing. Or a Grand Fondo style race, you're always going to have a group to ride with, and it's a little bit less threatening, maybe a little bit less intimidating, this Grand Fondo style event. It's definitely a race for maybe the top 25%, but maybe the other 75% are pushing themselves, and it's hard, but it's definitely something that the competition isn't there for everyone, and the competition might be different. It might be just seeing if you can finish, and that's a competition within yourself.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, let's go to a safety video.
All right.
And then we'll come back and we'll talk to Joel Fletcher some more about OBRA and learn about things like cyclocross and his junior racing. So let's watch a safety video.
Maybe you ride to school. Maybe you ride for fun. Either way, when you're on a bike, you want to get where you're going safely. To do that, you need to remember a few key things. Be visible, follow the rules of the road, and be predictable. Okay, that's it, we're done. Well, not done exactly. We might have a few more things to say. When we say be visible, what we mean is be easy to see. Drivers should be watching for you, and they are, but do your part. Make sure your bike is ready for riding, and that includes having working lights and reflectors. In the daytime, wear bright colors. At night, wear something reflective, either clothing or gear. And dress for safety. If you're wearing loose pants, for example, strap down the pant leg on the chain side of the bike, like this, so it won't get caught while you're riding. And wear a bike helmet when you ride. It may or may not be the law where you live, but it's always a good idea. Of course, part of the idea of wearing a helmet is not to put it to the test, not to have a wreck in the first place. And that's all about where you choose to ride and how you do it. Bikes are considered vehicles. So when you're riding a bike on the road, follow the same rules as car drivers do. Just like a driver, you need to look for and obey road signs and traffic signals. We're talking stop signs, yield signs, red lights, and so on. Keep to the right, but far enough from parked cars so you don't get clipped by a door that opens suddenly. Usually that's at least 3 feet. But what happens when you don't have 3 feet? When the lane narrows, for example. That's when you need to take the lane. Taking the lane means that you move into the center of the lane, just like a car. You should do this when the lane narrows or when you're coming up to an intersection or some other kind of turn. In these situations, the center of the lane is usually the best place to be. When it's time to change lanes, you should look for traffic, signal, and then move one lane at a time. Traffic will always be changing, so it's important to look and signal each time you want to change lanes. Anytime you're uncomfortable with a traffic situation, you have choices. You can get off the bike and walk on the sidewalk. You can choose a different route, one that has bike lanes, or slower traffic. Or you can use a combination of bike and transit. But no matter where you're riding, a road or a trail, always watch out for people walking. Move out of their way, and let them know when you're about to pass them on the left.
On your left.
If there's one thing drivers count on, it's predictability. So one of the best ways to be safe is to be predictable. For example, use hand signals before you turn or stop. Ride in the same direction the cars are going, with the flow of traffic, not against it. And don't assume that drivers will see you just because you see them. You already know this part, but we're gonna say it anyway. Put your phone away while you're riding. You don't want to be talking or texting because you need to be alert and paying attention to what you're doing. Same goes for earbuds or headphones. You need to hear what's going on around you, so leave them in your bag for later. Keep both hands on the handlebars unless you're signaling, and keep your eyes open for hazards, things like wet roads, gravel, debris, anything that can mess with your ride. As we said up front, it really comes down to 3 things. Be visible, be predictable, and follow the same rules as a car. Make sure that drivers can see you, that you let them know what you're about to do, and that you're following the rules of the road. That's it. Have a good ride.
Welcome back to Psychology Today, and thanks again for watching. Before we get back talking with Joel about OBRA, I want to continue to encourage cyclists to be riding their bikes during the fall and winter. Different bicycle clubs and meetup groups offer rides all year round, and if you pick your ride, and we got better and better weather services now, you can stay dry and get in some rides if you kind of make an effort. So just pick your day and get your rides in. January usually kicks off with New Year's Day rides. Bike clubs, I know Portland Wheelman will have a New Year's Day ride just kind of to kick off the new year of cycling. And so you might look into some of those. Maybe 2019 is going to be a year that you set some goals for yourself as far as cycling. We're talking about competition and riding this evening. And but maybe it's Reach the Beach, your first Reach the Beach ride, or maybe your first Century, which is 100 miles. Maybe this is your year to do Seattle to Portland, or we call it STP, or even a Cycle Oregon. So we're talking about competition, but there's lots of different kinds of riding, and we believe that you can accomplish your goals if you set your mind to it, and if you reach out to your bicycling community for help to achieve your goals. Maybe this year you'll get yourself in such great shape that you can pick rides that you want to do and not just because they're short and you feel like you can do them. It's a luxurious situation to be in, to pick some rides just because they sound like a whole lot of fun. So it's December, and in Vancouver, Washington, a few weeks ago, one of the local bike and helmet holiday events was hit by thieves. And they lost some of their bikes and helmets to the thieves, and those were set out to be given to the local children. So I want to report that Northwest Bicycle Safety Council was able to load up our NWBSC van with our remaining helmets from 2018, and we had about 160 helmets that we were able to give to that organization, and they in turn were able to give those helmets to local children. Our preference at Northwest Bicycle Safety Council is always to be hands-on with the helmet fitting and make sure that the helmets fit properly, but we saw a need and we just jumped in with the spirit of the greater good. And so thanks to all of you who support Northwest Bicycle Safety Council, it allowed us to help somebody else due to your generosity. So we'll be ordering some new helmets really soon. We hardly have any left. So let's talk some more about OBRA, Joel.
Cool. Sounds good.
All right. So we were talking about some of the OBRA events, and we didn't even touch on cyclocross. So the Cross Crusade series. Tell us about cyclocross and Cross Crusades.
Yeah. So the Cyclocross Crusade series is probably our biggest series throughout the year, and we'll have the most highly attended races. We have always starts off with the Alpenrose double weekend, and then they race in Bend, they race out in Cascade Locks, they race up at PIR at Portland International Raceway. We have a lot of great cyclocross races before that, as well as during that time, as well as after that time. We have a lot of races that just happened down in Southern Oregon last weekend, and then we have one more at the beginning of the year in January. Cyclocross is very popular as a whole right now, and it's something that is a lot to do with the atmosphere of a cyclocross race. It's very family friendly. The atmosphere is everyone kind of comes and sets up their tents, usually the Friday before the weekend of racing, and people come out and hang out all weekend. They'll have barbecues, they'll have food, they'll have music. The atmosphere is great, and it is really great for just hanging out, watching racing, watching a loved one race, or watching the rest of your teammates race. It's something that I don't race cyclocross anymore. I used to, but I run a junior team, and I'm at a lot of cyclocross races, and it's never boring to be at them, even if you're not racing or helping support other people race. I've
been to a few this year. I went to Cascade Locks, I went to the PIR one,
oh, cool.
and I went to the Alpenrose one, and that was my first time at Alpenrose. I've lived over here for years and never been to Alpenrose.
Yeah.
But you know, they seem really well organized, and the routes were really well marked. My oldest son races. That's why I'm there. So it is a good family thing.
Yeah, you were there.
Especially this year when it was kind of dry.
Yeah,
and from a spectator's perspective.
Yeah, it's a very non-threatening, like I said, race experience. The courses are short. If you're new to cyclocross and you're racing for the first time, and maybe you get lapped by the leader or get passed by some people, you don't even know that. It doesn't even, you can't really understand that in the race.
You're right.
You always have people to race against within the race. You're always going to be around other people and have your little battles within the race, which is super fun and super welcoming. And maybe you're your goal is to beat this one specific person, and then you continue moving up that goal, and maybe your goal then becomes to win a category, and then you move up categories and things like that. So there's always battles and little races to be had within each race itself.
Yeah, you're right, because there's kind of sequential starts, but yet you don't necessarily know who's with you, who's behind you, passing you. That would be bad. Or you're passing anyway. And so you're right. So you kind of have to, I guess, pick and choose your own kind of competition then, is what you're saying.
Yeah, totally. And you pick your battles in the race, and a lot of people are around like the same 5 people all year at all these different races, and one person will win one of those battles, and then the next weekend another person will win, and it's a great atmosphere for not just the winners of each race, for everyone that's racing.
So they are so popular that there's a lot of people in the groups. They're different categories, like you're saying. You line them up in sequence and you start them. There's so many people to contend with. How do you manage all that as a racer? How do you get around so many people?
That would probably be a better question for the promoters. I don't really ever see an issue with the amount of people on course, because it gets so spread out. And the courses are short, but it's not so short to where you're just like constantly bumping into people. There's always room to pass, there's always room to get around people, and then the race spreads out pretty quickly, just because you can only send so many people through a corner at once. So it for now, I mean, and there's been times where the Cyclocross Crusade has had way more people than this racing. Yeah, I mean, we're not even at our biggest numbers. It's a lot right now, but there's been times when there's been more racers, and yeah, I think it's a lot to say about the great course design that all of our promoters do, that they make a course that's short enough but also long enough to where it gets spread out, and it's not like you're constantly bumping into people. So the promoters do a good job of handling that.
So generally, how do you get started in cyclocross? Go to your website.
Yeah, the OBRA website is great. We have a few other sister websites that can help. We have try.obra.org, which has a lot of resources for new racers, both adult and juniors. I always tell people to reach out to me personally. My contact information is on our website. I am always free to talk on the phone, or not always free, but pretty much free most of the time to talk on the phone or answer an email about getting started. We have people who run clinics throughout the year. We have clinics for both adults and juniors. We have clinics that are women specific. Our women's committee does a great job of helping support those. Following our social media would also be a great way to see those different types of opportunities. And like I said, getting in contact with me if you have any specific questions. Our website will also list those. So there's a lot of opportunities to get started.
That sounds really helpful. You had mentioned Alpenrose, and you have a cyclocross there, race there. Tell us a little bit about Alpenrose. That's kind of an entity all of its own. Yeah,
Alpenrose has been around, I think it's over 100 years now. I think they just celebrated their 100-year anniversary a couple years back. It's owned by the Kadanoff family, and they've owned it the whole time. I believe it's down with the grandchildren of the original owners of Alpenrose. They're wonderful to our organization. They allow us to store equipment there. They allow us to host track races there. We have the velodrome, which is one of the very few velodromes in the country. There's not a lot of them, and having that in our backyard is wonderful. We do Wednesday night track classes there during the summertime, which is taught by a lot of very experienced track racers that enable you to get the skills needed to race on the track, and just all of the the rules of the track that you might not necessarily think about, that are kind of all these weird specific rules to the track. And we have rental bikes out there that are easily accessible, things like that. So it's more than just the racing. I mean, the ability to store stuff there, to have events there, is huge for us, and we're so grateful to them. And if anyone wants to give back to Alpenrose, going to the Christmas in Dairyville that's going on. I believe they have one more weekend, or maybe two more weekends of the Christmas in Dairyville. Going to those, supporting the velodrome, or supporting the Alpenrose facility as a whole is great.
Yeah, it looks like a really great place. And that's really neat that you really facilitate learning how to ride on a track.
Yeah, it's different for sure. It's not... It takes a little bit of getting used to, and it takes some time. A lot of people are very intimidated by track racing because that bank is so steep on that track. But it's really, if you think about it, it's one of the safest areas of bike racing. A lot of crashes happen in other disciplines of the sport because people are braking or people are not braking when they should be braking. You don't have brakes on a track bike. It's a fixed gear, so your legs are controlling your speed. So everyone kind of flows together, and it's kind of this cohesive unit, the peloton at the track. And it's something that a lot of people are intimidated. They go do it, and they realize how much fun it is and how not intimidating it is once they try it out.
Yeah.
And it's something that I would just encourage everyone to try. It makes for it really helps your other areas of bike riding, your cadence and your pedal stroke because of that fixed gear. It's only one gear, so it really forces you to have the mechanics of pedaling and actually riding your bike just become better and better the more you ride on the track. Yeah, very smooth. You can always tell track racers outside of track racing because they usually have a really high cadence and their pedal stroke is just very smooth. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, and they have no problem being really close to people, like racing a road bike, because you're very close to people on the track bike.
And my philosophy too is that people that come from a mountain biking background, like maybe you, have better bike skills as well because you've had to develop those with mountain biking. For instance, if I go off the road accidentally on my road bike, my inclination is to like jerk the bike back up on the road, and that doesn't work. And you as a mountain biker probably know to just kind of ride it out and maybe stop the bike instead of crashing.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to be said about starting out mountain biking first and just honing those off-road skills. And you can take, I mean, every discipline of the sport has crossover into other disciplines, and doing cyclocross racing will help your bike handling as well, will help your mountain biking. Your mountain biking will help your bike handling on your road or your track bike or whatever that may be. So all of them are good for their own. Road biking really helps your fitness because you're riding more miles and longer hours. So you have all these disciplines of the sport, but they all help support one another.
Yeah, I can see where that would be true.
Yeah.
Well, let's delve into a little bit that you're the junior racing director there. So looking for young people, trying to bring them into the sport. Who do you find interested in racing?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I find all different types of kids, and obviously kids who have their parents who race and grow up going to bike races. That's going to be a natural transition for them to try it. But we also find kids that parents don't race and they don't have anyone really pushing them into the sport. They just like it. I grew up watching bike racing on TV and watching the Tour de France on TV, and that's how I found it and how I found to like it. So there's the kids that do race. It's hard. Bike racing is really hard, and it's kids that for the most part don't have a problem suffering, don't have a problem working hard and putting in time. They're usually pretty focused kids, or it's kids who aren't focused, and then bike racing makes them become focused because they can channel their energy into one thing. I mean, you can put so much energy. The bike will always take as much energy as you want to put into it, where you can't really ever put too much energy into it.
Yeah. And what benefits do you see that young people derive from cycling?
Yeah, I think the social skills are huge. Kids are hanging out with other kids all the time at races. I mean, we have kids who will come and race, warm up, race, go through all their same routine at a cyclocross race, and then they'll hang out for the rest of the day while their parents are racing and go play essentially and have fun. So building those social skills, also leadership skills. I run my own junior team, PDX Devo, and I definitely see kids on our team that develop these leadership skills where instead of me going and telling someone what to do, they're going and telling another kid what to do, or how to ride a line, or how to be better at the sport. And then also, like I mentioned, hard work. It's going to teach kids, whether they like it or not, the more work you put into it and the harder you work, the better you're going to be. And it is a sport of suffering. I mean, that's really what bike racing is learning how to suffer and being the one who can suffer the longest. And it really teaches kids how to work hard and then how to suffer. After racing your bike, maybe doing your chores doesn't seem so hard.
Yeah. Well, we've only got about 5 minutes left, Joel, so let me pick and choose some questions here. So, you know, the cyclocross, all these racing seasons, most people have to work for a living.
Yeah.
And so how do you get the training in to be competitive on the weekend?
Yeah, there's a lot of, especially right now when it's getting dark early, it doesn't get light till later in the day. Riding indoors, there are a lot of opportunities with indoor riding programs like Zwift to get on and virtually ride or race your bike, and it enables people to have the motivation maybe to ride in the winter time, where they can hop on the trainer, ride with their friends, or ride with people all over the world.
Yeah.
And that really increases their fitness level during the winter for the summer months. During the summer, when it's light until 10 p.m. I mean, we have a lot of midweek racing during the summer at PIR. We have Monday and Tuesday night PIR. We have Tuesday track racing, Thursday and Friday track racing at Alpenrose that will start around 6:30. So it's time for people to get there after work and go race and then be home with the family for dinner time. So we offer a lot of opportunities during the summer, but during the winter, it's finding a team maybe or a club that will help people stay motivated to go ride maybe longer on the weekends, or maybe in poor weather if you're doing it with a group of people. It's going to be more motivating than doing it alone.
That does help.
Yeah.
And finally then, what about people my age, Joel? So I'm like beyond middle age here. Is there some kind of, you know, can I get in the competition here, do you think?
Absolutely. We have people who are much your senior racing bikes, and we have 50 plus age groups, we have 60 plus age groups, we have 70 plus age groups, and competitions for all these age groups, especially like I mentioned about the time trial racing, where you can go out and test yourself against the clock, and it's a great introduction to the sport where you're not around a bunch of other people. We also have time trial nights out at the track, which is, I believe, on Tuesday nights at Alpenrose. So you're racing the track, but it's just a time trial. You're not around other people. You're just you against the clock as fast as you can go. So it's never too late. It's a very low impact sport. Obviously, almost everyone knows that. It's the sport that you always do, or always seem to do first after injuries, because it's so low impact and it's extremely healthy. It's very, very good for you, and it's something that's going to lengthen your life, I believe.
I
staying
believe
healthy
so.
and continuing to ride your bike, and we're here to help facilitate that any way we can.
Well, I'm having talked to you, Joel, I'm really impressed with the way you do seem to be available. I mean, I'm really under the impression that if I call or email you, how do I do this, you're you're going to help. And
Yeah.
so that's really important, because it's very intimidating to come into something like this just cold
Yeah.
and go to even a cyclocross race and you don't have any idea where you're
Yeah.
supposed to be, how it's supposed to work. So
Yeah.
that's really encouraging. That
Yeah.
alone is huge.
Yeah, I'll always answer stuff as much as I can. Chuck will answer stuff as much as he can as well, and it's something that I want people to be contacting me as much as possible with questions and concerns and things like that. And my virtual door is always open.
Well, finally, we just have a few seconds left probably. Give us some words of encouragement, just overall, to get involved with OBRA and maybe some competitive cycling.
Just don't be intimidated, and I know it's an intimidating sport with all the spandex and skin suits and things like that, but these people really are nice and encouraging and want to help as much as they can. So don't be afraid to ask someone if you're out riding and you notice that they look like a bike racer, or they're maybe at a level higher than you, to ask them for some tips. The community is great, and they're very supportive, and no one looks down on anyone for any level of riding that they are. So just don't be afraid to ask questions, and people are there to help.
I think that's true overall with the cycling community. I think my husband used to be a surfer, and he talks about how surfers won't tell where the good waves are.
Yeah.
They keep everything hidden.
I've been there.
And so how different the cycling community is. That you're
Yeah.
right. You want everybody to have a good time, to be safe, to know where the good routes are, the good rides are, the good races are.
Yeah, the good routes are not sacred like sacred waves, and it's not like that at all. It's very welcoming, and we want as many people racing as possible, because that's how the sport is going to survive, and especially the younger generation with kids. Because long after I'm done racing, I want kids to continue the sport, and they're going to be in positions where I am now, and that's what I try and teach them for the future.
Thank you, Joel. Thank you to Joel Fletcher from OBRA, and that's our show. And thank you for joining us. So I hope that you've learned more about bicycle racing, and that you're now not intimidated and can join in on the fun. So I hope you do ride your bike this winter and join us at Portland Wheelman Touring Club. We have bicycle rides every day of the year. Look for my name as a ride leader, and I too will welcome you slowly into road riding. So please join us. And thanks again for joining Psychology Today.